Absolutely.
Is that Gilman still running by the volunteers and fundraising? Mm-hmm. It's not owned by anyone, right?
No, so yeah, it's totally run by the volunteer collective. Mm-hmm. Both Lexi and I are part of that. And,
okay.
We do have voted like heads that are in charge of show booking or staff or the sound department.
Yeah.
But yeah, nobody. It's all volunteer based, and everybody kind of can, if someone new shows up, they're welcome to get as involved as they would like really quickly. So it's been that way now for 36 years.
36 years. Yeah. Could you tell us about more this place?
Yeah.
Yeah, and history and...
Yeah, so it was started in 1986.
Yeah.
It was founded because in Berkeley in the East Bay, they didn't really have a place to have shows that kind of safer for all ages for kids to come to shows, and a big part of it was finding a space that was also run by the community that was kind of fostering it. And so they found this warehouse, and ever since then it's always been here. It's been here for 36 years, and we do shows Friday, Saturday, and Sunday usually every night, and then we also do weeknights as well now. And I mean, it's hosted so many bands over the years, the big ones being things like Greendeay, Rancid, Operation Ivy, Spaz, AFI, Offspring played here a lot when they were starting out, Primus, bands like that. The space is so shaped by what's happening. All the murals that we have around here are constantly changing, and people are free to come paint whatever they would like. Even during shows, we've had people that paint things, and it's really shaped by that. And a lot of the shows were, especially in the 80s and 90s, a big part of it was prioritizing interesting bands over things like having one show lineup that was all the same type of music. They would have a lot of mixed genres. A community space, and the shows are what keeps it going and helps fund it. But really, we're open to anything that people want to do with it. We host Zine Fest, where people come and sell zines and talk about what they're making, and a lot of arts events and stuff. But that meant that you kind of had, for the first time, not first time ever here, but you had a built-in audience of kids that would come every single weekend just to be here. It didn't matter who was playing.
And they don't have to pay for that.
So if they volunteer for the show,
volunteer for the show.
Yeah, so they can like sell the tickets at the front, or watch the door, or do sound, or sell the concessions or something like that. They can get in for free, and it's always been that if you just show up at the beginning of the show and there's space, you're welcome to. Even sweeping the floors, they can do that. Normally, if they're just here to attend the show, they pay somewhere between $10 and $20. Most shows, though, we've kept to being around $10 to keep it still as open to all kids. And always, like, if there's someone that really wants to come to a show and they don't have it, they're welcome to come in.
I think,
and it's something that I don't think is that sustainable without the sort of system that we've run it on. And the only reason it's worked this long is you have to really want the space to thrive. People that get really involved with it and try to, make money from it, or try to sort of make it all about themselves, it doesn't really work that great. And I think a lot of other spaces fail because they don't have the systems in place to run successfully with it. And now that it's become very historically important, I think that's what really carries it at this point, is you have people that come here, from all over the world who just are, are just kind of happy to be there. And that creates this system that allows us to keep running it this way, and you always have new high school students or something that want to come work shows here. And for example, with that, they can, a lot of high schools in the area have like community service hour requirements where they have to volunteer somewhere in order to graduate.
And they
can
here.
and they do their hours here working shows. And a lot of my friends that I went to high school with did their hours here, and it's a big way of getting involved in a field that can be sort of hard to put yourself into. For example, if you're working sound
Sounds
yeah. A lot of venues are going to say, "Oh, what's your experience? Do you have to know how to do this, this, and this." If you show up and have never done any of that, that's fine here. We want this to be a learning environment where you can be taught.
Very educated.
Yeah, and that I think further makes it even more accessible for these kids that might really be interested, but they might be shy, they might be nervous to get into it, and we want this to be a welcoming place where, it's punk, you can mess up, you can do whatever, and you learn by doing
and
it.
open to everybody, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Earlier this year,
Did they die from the stage?
People do, people
Because
jump.
we saw the sign
The
there.
sign, that sign for us is more of a like, we told you not to. If you do it, go. We don't actively prevent people from stage diving. It's part of the culture. It's part of punk. But it's more if you fall on the concrete.
Yeah.
We told you not to.
People will always catch you.
Yeah. But we had a band called Dimebag that played here a few months ago. That they'll surprise you. They'll have a bucket of like pig meat, and they'll throw it into the crowd with blood and stuff, and like that's a little gross, but it's still fun to kind of see that, even if it's not fun like cleaning it up. It's cool. Like no other venue can have that here. There was one band called the Go Nuts that played here, that I think they played here in the mid-90s, and every show they would release like 5 or 6 bags of powdered sugar and just throw it around the crowd. And there were many venues when they would play and it would clog all the soundboard and do all this damage, but it's just sort of that kind of captured chaos that is possible here, because it's it's for fun. We don't care. Like if you want to mess it up and if something gets damaged, we'll figure it out. And, we don't try to make it be like all these rules if you can't do this on stage. And
Very open. Very open.
Yeah, because the music is all about self-expression.
Yeah, right.
We don't want to like stop people's self-expression. As long as it's not being racist or sexist or things like that, it's about having fun and doing cool stuff. And so we don't.
That's
wanna,
cool.
Yeah.
Could you introduce the graphics or arts on the
Yeah.
wall?
So a lot of it is pretty new.
That's pretty new. Oh.
Yeah, so everything changes pretty quickly. Some of the stuff like this piece is probably 5 or 6 years old at this point. Kind of one of the most iconic things is the Sweet Children written up there, which was Green Day's original name.
Right over there?
Yeah, on that banister right there. That's been there since probably the late 90s, early 2000s. And then you can you'll go around and under here there's flyers from the shows. And, everything has a little bit of history. And the oldest thing I'll show you is in our office. Kind of the office where like staff will do payout and things like that. And if you look back here is some of the flyers from the 80s and 90s. Bands like Crimp Shrine.
That's the original flyer, right?
Stuff like Jawbreaker, Rancid, Gauze played here with Spaz, Swingin' Utters, Sam I Am, No Effects up there. And you kind of see as you move around it, there's flyers from sort of every era up until the last 4 or 5 years. And everywhere, like under here, it's fun. It's like a little museum, but because we're so active,
It's
stuff
kind
is
of archive, right?
yeah. But stuff is here that's really historically important.
Yeah.
But then there's flyers from the 80s, and then here's our lost and found. Like we're using the space as best as we can around everything.
Yeah.
But that flyer is probably like that one's probably 1990, 1991, something like that. And it kind of whatever people want to put up in this room sort of happens. A lot of it is shows that sort of a staff member was really excited about it or something, and they sort of like, I want to put that on the wall, and a lot of it changes. The one thing we do stick with is everything that goes on the wall here stays here. It's never left. Like, we don't take things down that much, and we try to preserve what's in here as best as we can. So this photo wall, Murray Bowles, was a photographer here for almost the entire time of the venue, basically. Yeah. He passed away a couple years ago, but he took photos for, like, that's Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day, and he took things like Green Day and Operation Ivy and other bands like that went on to be used for, like, on Green Day's album, their first two albums, it's photos that Murray Bowles took, and
he took the photo.
Yeah, so all of these are photos that he took. That's him right there. That's Murray.
Murray Bowles. And
it's bands like, kind of spans everything. You have an Isocracy show where they were throwing garbage. That's, I think, from Unit Pride. That's Isocracy. That's, that might be MDC, Filth, Blats. Just kind of a big select. That's Tim Yohannan, who founded Maximum Rock and Roll and was the original person that kind of said we need a DIY space, and originally was one of the main people that founded Gilman, along with a lot of people that are kind of in this image, and then other kind of pieces about Gilman. But yeah, that's kind of the main photo wall. We keep that for a few years, and then we'll update it. And
when they just started to playing their music in here, they were not the famous. And they were indie band, right?
And Green Day went from playing here. Originally, they were viewed as too poppy. Their music was too kind of pop to play here. Yeah, they weren't. Their music didn't sound as like punk, and so too much like kind of melodic radio stuff. And so originally they weren't playing here that much, and then they finally played here and really quickly got really big. But Operation Ivy played their first shows here, and whole time still were just totally independent. And so you had a band that went from growing up a mile away from here playing with their friends, and then became this massive thing, and then disappeared. And they did that whole thing without really being on a big label, and it was all based around this scene. And that's why I think for me they're kind of the pinnacle of what I think of when it's like success in this scene, because Green Day has done amazing things and has been so great for us, but with that major label they went really far. For Op Ivy, the whole time being part of Gilman is so cool. It was just, that was all they were, was a Gilman band that has now had a legacy for 30 years. Never, so few people saw them perform that now they're this like legacy thing, and so legendary for such a little time. I think what I'll say is, so when they started, they were viewed as, by Tim Yohannan specifically in Maximum Rock and Roll, was viewed, Green Day felt like punk was such a, fast kind of that moshing, slam dance kind of thing. And then for Green Day to come and have songs that were very melody driven about being in love and, having crushes and things like that, it was very different and I think it was something inventing pop punk. And they when they signed to a major label and released Dookie, they were banned from Gilman, and all major label bands are currently not allowed to perform at Gilman. That rule was created in, I believe that was 1993 or 1994, whenever Dookie came out. And the reason it was created, and there's a big misconception that we banned Green Day because they were sellouts. And our whole thing that I personally have come into it because I discovered Green Day before I found Gilman, and Green Day was this thing that I knew about as a music and like as the music and the band. I had no idea they were from here and from the scene that I kind of was beginning to join.
Yeah.
And I've always felt that they were treated too harshly. If you get success in the music industry, all your friends should want that for you. You know, you're getting to do what everybody wants to do who plays music here. And of course there are some people that just want to play locally and play here, and that's fine. But if you get the chance to make money and live off what you love doing, you should totally be allowed to do that. And what they were afraid of is Gilman was such a close-knit community from 1986 to then, the early 90s. Yeah. That when that happened, a lot of major labels sent people to go find other Green Days. They came here,
Gilman, right?
came here looking to find, they would say Reprise Records got Green Day and they sold a ton of records. We're going to send, Atlantic Records or something is going to send their own person to find their Green Day. And so bands like Sam I Am got major label deals and put out albums on major labels, and it became a thing of, I think people were a little bit afraid of change, where Green Day started bringing people, came to the Green Day shows who were, really into football, but like Green Day, but had no idea what this place was. And they were afraid of this community being opened up to the world and being opened up to people that weren't part of it. And I totally understand when you work really hard to maintain this place. Yeah. It's really scary to have it sort of potentially be threatened with a big influx of change and people coming in acting like it's a business thing. Yeah. Like, again, what I said earlier of like, it doesn't work in a collective when people try to prioritize themselves and make money from it. When you have talent scouts coming in trying to find bands, you then have it turn into this feeding frenzy of bands trying to pass, outdo one another, and it's a big competition. And the no major label bands playing here rule was created so that prioritize local bands, prioritize touring acts without having to worry about this big band's going to come play here and bring all of their staff and management with them, and they're going to try to get other bands and hurt this community. Yeah, right. Now, the major label has changed so much to what it was that in some ways the rule is so pointless. Because also now with the digital world of Spotify and everything,
you don't even need a
label
to be super huge.
We'll have bands play here. We'll have bands play here that'll bring hundreds of people that got big on TikTok. They have no label. They just naturally got really popular on social media. And in some ways it brings up the question of, are those bands going to bring the same people that we were worried about with the major labels? Maybe. We don't know. But it feels like an outdated rule that our whole thing now is like, actually, another distinction, Green Day is on a major label. Rancid isn't. Rancid, there's nothing stopping Rancid from playing here next week. Except for the size and the amount of people that would want to come see Rancid or NoFX or something like that. And so for us, I've always viewed it more as kind of a safety thing of if a band could play a stadium, they probably shouldn't play here because it's not suited for that. And so the rule has evolved. I think we are owed a lot to Green Day as Green Day owes a lot to Gilman, and I don't hold the frustration that a lot of the people back in the day used to. And I know a lot of people from that era have changed their opinions too now of seeing that Green Day has done a lot for the community. They don't feel the same way that Green Day is selling out or something like that. And I just think it's people that are jealous of the success of Green Day, and a lot of it, it may be, why wasn't that me or something like that. And
got it.
So, yeah.
Very impressive story.
Yeah. I've spent a lot